What is up, everyone? I'm John Hansen. Thanks for subscribing, liking, viewing this video here at fantasypoints.com. Well, August has certainly flown by. I haven't really been able to do a lot of videos. Why? Well, I have been watching a lot of preseason football, keeping up with all the news and the notes in training camp and beyond. And I am here to offer up a report on some preseason vibes, a preseason vibe check. We'll start here. We'll do in this video the NFC South. I just randomly picked that. For those who are unfamiliar, I have the entire article up at fantasypoints.com, which is updated periodically as things happen here in late August, early September. But almost 20 years ago, it's probably been about 20 years ago, 19 years ago, I started doing a preseason roundup of all the vibes. And keep in mind, this is all I do, basically, keep up with the NFL. So we do have some good vibage in the NFC South here. Let's start with the Atlanta Falcons. They didn't play their guys in the last preseason game. I would say the vibes are leaning positive. Certainly, we're not out of the woods yet with Desmond Ridder, but there were, in the second preseason game in particular, of course, there was a moment where it was like, okay, we have Bijan Robinson, Kyle Pitts, and Drake London on the field. Of course, Mac Hollins makes the play, but that will probably happen during the season. But it was pretty nice to see. I would say the vibes are okay, above average here. Trending toward the positive. We're not overwhelmed by any stretch. None of these guys are absolute must-haves. I do like Kyle Pitts quite a bit. Drake London, I'm kind of agnostic on at this point. Same with Bijan Robinson, but pretty good vibes overall. Good vibes, too, for Mac Hollins, who is clearly the number 2. The only thing we're waiting on, really, is what's the deal with Cordarrelle Patterson. He's been down for a number of weeks, and he is making pretty decent money, so I'm not sure if he is completely safe, but I would imagine he is. Tyler Algier, of course, locked in there. So I would say pretty decent vibes with the Atlanta Falcons. Let's go on to the Carolina Panthers. A little bit of a mixed bag. The offensive line certainly got off to a bad start, and boy, it did not take long before the size questions about Bryce Young came to the surface. How about damn near his first drop back or second drop back? My man got rocked. I'm sure they'll get it together. They do have talent up front there, especially on the edges, but not the greatest vibe. But certainly Bryce Young has, quote unquote, looked the part. The buzzkill here would be these buzzkill receivers, DJ Chark and Terrace Marshall. What else is new? That's all these guys do is kill buzzes. Both guys a little bit banged up. Might not be all that important. They did part ways with Shi Smith, so Laviska Shenault, who I've never been a fan of, he's a key backup, basically. Probably going to play a lot week 1. I don't have much of a feel for Miles Sanders. He missed most of the preseason per usual. I'm not into him. I guess the vibe is fine. Not much of a vibe in the backfield, but the good vibe is with Adam Thielen and Jonathan Mingo. Different types of good vibes here. Adam Thielen, as we've said all off season, we've been way ahead of his ADP all year, and I'm not a person who likes to endorse boring picks, descending players, no. But hey, every situation is different. I'm trying to embrace boring this year, and this is as boring as it gets, but Adam Thielen will get open. He will be a reliable target for Bryce Young. He'll probably be Bryce Young's first read damn near half the time, and he's going to get a lot of targets, and he's going to catch 60-plus balls, if that does anything for you, at his ADP of around, I think it's like 140, 135. Now, on the other side of the good vibe equation is Jonathan Mingo. Pretty serious young man. I sat down with him for 10 minutes at the Combine. Believer. I'm a believer. He is a little raw. There was a play in the second preseason game where he was actually open in the end zone for a touchdown from Bryce Young. They weren't on the same page, but clearly he has been put on the fast track. They're very high on Jonathan Mingo, and he's going to be a real factor. So fourth receiver, 135 picks into a draft. That is a really, really nice flyer for upside. Ideally a wide receiver 5, but I think you can even get by with him as a wide receiver 4. Yeah, actually it's higher. Man, let's call it a great wide receiver 5. We have him at wide receiver 61. His ADP is 67, ADP around 153. So there it is. I mean, it's a little bit of a mixed bag. Could be worse, though. Moving on here, checking in a preseason vibe check, the NFC South here at fantasypoints.com. We can call this Hansen's Hints. It kind of is what it is. We call that's the name of the podcast. New Orleans Saints, a little weird here. I don't have much. I think the vibe overall has been positive on Derek Carr. He's looked pretty good. My guy, Juwan Johnson, who, if you've been following these videos, I've been all over this guy all off season. Very good vibe there. People were worried about Foster Moreau. I was not one of them. Now we'll see. Hasn't played yet, but it's looking good. He looks good with Derek Carr this summer. We've seen that even in the preseason games. I have not heard wonderful things about Michael Thomas. I've heard that clearly the man's lost a step. It makes a lot of sense. Life sneaks up at you here. The man's 30 years old already. Feels like he hasn't been good in about 5 years. So not the greatest vibe there, but correspondingly, a very good vibe on my other guy, Rashid Shaheed, who is on the mend, and he's been down for most of the preseason, which does stink, but he's been in the system. He's a very, very smart guy. So I'm not that worried about him picking things up or being on the same page as everybody else because he's missed a lot of time. Freak of nature. Guy was kicking tail last year, obviously, was like top 3 in yards per route run down the stretch. So I am very much into Rashid Shaheed and Juwan Johnson. The backfield vibe it's not great for me in that I think it is, in fact, shaping up to be a little bit of an ugly committee. They're paying Jamal Williams decent coin. He's going to be a factor, of course. Kendre Miller has shaken off some injury issues quickly this summer and shown pretty well in the preseason. And then Alvin Kamara, I thought, looked very, very good in the first game. So 3-headed monster. We all know he's out for the first 3 games. And I'm not really in on any of those New Orleans Saint running backs here. And then last but not least, the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Well, I will say this. Number one, it's a buzzkill that Ryan Jensen is lost for the season. And that was certainly part of my analysis of the Bucs, that they get Jensen back. I know he was like 33 years old, but presumably he's coming back and, solidifying the middle of that O-line, and that is certainly a problem. But I will say that the vibe on Baker Mayfield could be a lot worse. He seems to be in a pretty good place here with Dave Canales, who did a wonderful job resurrecting Geno Smith last year. If he was integral to that resurrection, then it's not absurd to think that maybe Baker can be okay here. And he does have 2 very good receivers who are healthy, and Mike Evans and Chris Godwin, who are, for the most part, looking pretty solid this summer, especially Evans. He seems like he's gunning for that 1,000-yard season. I haven't heard too much about Cade Otton. Yeah, he's probably a waiver wire guy. The vibe could be a lot worse. I have talked with Rachaad White since the OTAs in June, and he's very high on Canales in the offense, really putting guys in a good position to make plays, lining up Rachaad all over the place. And as I've written and said, with Rachaad White, with our projection with him, we're way, way over the markets. I am giving him the most minimal level of production possible. And we're still way over his ADP. So that, I think, says a lot about Rachaad White with this massive role. Maybe Baker will be a catastrophe. The O-line will suck and this thing will unravel. And I think that's certainly baked into Rashaad's very low ADP of around RB27. But I would argue, even if things go poorly, if Rachaad is relatively healthy, he can trip and fall into this level of production. I'm only giving him like 14 carries a game for like 56 yards and a rushing touchdown every 3 weeks, which I don't think is too much to ask. And of course, the man caught 50 balls last year as a backup behind Leonard Fournette. So 59 grabs is a very modest projection. It gets him way up there on the board. And I think the vibes, by the way, on Rashad overall are still very good. He's like kind of one of their faces of the franchise. And last but not least, and this helps because they did suffer that injury with Russell Gage, which was a buzzkill, is the rookie Trey Palmer has quickly emerged. A lot of people thought he was raw, kind of a one-year wonder guy. Quickly has emerged as a major factor here, and he's probably going to be the number 3 receiver. I talked with Trey Palmer on the radio back in March, and my man was not short on confidence. Not arrogant, but very confident in himself, and boom, he's showing that this summer. So there's a look, the Vibe Report from the NFC South here, wrapping up the 2023 preseason. Good luck with all your drafts. Of course, you'd be a fool if you didn't go to fantasypoints.com to get the subscription, the various subscriptions, do the cheat sheets, download them. I will be at the computer pretty much from here on out making modifications, and I can just click a couple of buttons, change the projection, boom, upload it. All the PDFs are super powered, good to go, very updated. So do check that out. Do continue to like and subscribe, and we'll catch you next time.